That's better.
Leave it as
I
the Tiger
got,
King,
wait,
man.
I
How
got
you doing?
another one.
Hey, how's it over in Dayton? Are you in Dayton still?
I'm in Greenville.
Yeah, man. I grew up in Huber. I think I told you, grew up in Huber Heights, brother. So,
Look who's behind me now.
is that Brad?
Yeah.
When you graduate high school?
We graduated in 94.
Okay. So, like the cats I knew were a little bit over, like big old Matt Giozzi,
Oh, yeah, I know Matt.
big old muscle head.
Yep. Matt Giozzi.
Oh, man. Is he still around there?
No, I think he's out in Dayton somewhere, actually.
Okay, man.
He's down
Well,
in Huber Heights. He's running a weight room down there.
imagine that.
Yeah.
He was on the juice in high school, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, man. So I won't keep you long. Basically, today I wanted to spotlight you. You did a great job last year. I don't think a lot of people know your story. To us that have been around, you're kind of a living legend because you helped Brand and Dustin in the biz. And I know you're humble, but man, that's how we look at you, brother. And just to start off, man, from Greenville High School, after high school, what did you get to do? Did you get into this right away or what happened? Did you start another job?
No, I was actually going to school at Sinclair for business management. So I started out in a factory and I was going to school. And then I left the factory, went into furniture sales. So I was doing furniture sales, schooling, and I was roofing houses on the side. So I was doing quite a bit back then.
So I want to pause there for a second. So at a young age, you already had 2-3 jobs. What pushed you to that? Was it how did you grow up? Did you grow up poor? Did your family middle class? What made you have 2 or 3 jobs while going to school?
Well, I'd always had to drive to make money. So since I was a little kid, I was the guy that, mowed the neighbors' yards. I raked their leaves. I shoveled their walks. I took their trash out. For all the, older people in the neighborhood, I was that guy. I had newspaper routes at the same time. So it's just something my father actually grained into me at a young age. We were a lower to middle class. And once I got a little bit older, we become a little bit more middle class. And then, I came from, they were humble beginnings, but they were fun, let me tell you.
Never wanted for anything. I remember those paper routes, man. We had to put the things over our head, and they got Sunday papers for heavy.
Yeah.
On my BMX Mongoose.
That's right.
When you ride
BMX bike, that's right. I had the thing strapped to the front so it would hold all my newspapers. And back then, it wasn't anything to, ride 8 blocks, to do paper route. Today, you got most of your adults are doing that today. But
and you had to collect money, right?
I collect the money too. Yeah, I used to collect the money. Had the little bill collector thing. I'd flip it open and take their payments. And I did it all.
So think about that. Did you ever recognize at that young of an age you were kind of running your own business?
No, I didn't actually.
Now, right? I didn't even into right now.
Awesome that you said but that's something that I never really recognized. But I absolutely did.
So after that, tell us how you got into insurance in general. Like, how old were you? What made you go the insurance route? Did you do was it Lincoln Heritage right away, or what was it?
So it's funny you asked that because today is my 21-year anniversary of starting in the business. So May 14th, 1999, I started in the business with Brad Jennings.
Okay.
Brad would show up to my job, my furniture sales job in Piqua, Ohio. He would show up at my job and he would just keep telling me, hey, you got to do this. You got to follow me. You got to, we have to do this together. We're going to make millions. So I listened to him and then he started showing up with these real nice car. He had a Chrysler Cirrus.
Ooh,
green line Chrysler Cirrus with gold lettering, and I'm telling you, man, back then that was a nice car. Had the sunroof and so it was pretty cool. And finally, I just he talked me into taking the test, taking the class, and back then you had to take the class on the weekends.
Yep.
for like 2 or 3 weekends, and then scheduled to take the exam. Well, I had to wait like a month to schedule the exam. So finally, I took the exam in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my son was just born a month before that.
You remember how much money you were making at the furniture store at the time? 30,000.
It was probably 25 to 30,000. Yeah, probably somewhere in that range.
And you were young. Hold on. How old were you then?
So I would have been 20. Let's see, I'm 24, so 23 years old.
So now that'd be probably making like 60,000 down, 60,000.
Yeah, I mean it was good money for young guy, growing a family. It was pretty good money.
So you had to give up something. It wasn't just like you were doing nothing. You gave up a pretty good income. And
I gave up everything. I gave up the schooling. I gave up the other jobs, and I went in full time. I mean, I didn't look back.
And how did you do to start off? And first, hold on, let me back up real quick. You told me you just had a kid, so definitely a little bit of stress might be on you to make it big. Probably confident in yourself. Was the wife on board at the time, or?
Oh no, man! I was so confident. I was so confident the day I quit my job and quit schooling. I actually drove my beat up 1995 Ford Probe that wouldn't come out of second gear. It's stuck in second gear. Which means it wouldn't go over 50 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It would blow up.
You took the streets everywhere.
I took it straight to Bo Townsend and Vandalia.
Yeah, right by.
And I traded it in for a Mercury Tracer, which was pretty nice car. Actually, I did for gas.
They're around it.
I paid $11,000. I had no job. But
remember what your payment was on that puppy? I wonder what
I don't remember. It was maybe 100 something a month. And my wife was so upset. And I come home and I'll never forget. I was sitting in the living room and she's really upset. And she's like, "Why are you going to buy a car?" And I said, "I don't know about you, honey." I said, "But I'm going to make a lot of money in this business."
That's awesome, man.
And she looked at me and she's like, "Holy shit, this guy, he's for real."
Now, fast forward about 2 years in the business. Is it everything you thought it was going to be? What were some of the ups? What were some of the downs? Talk to me about that a little bit.
So the ups were the money was great. The money was good. The money was fast. The money was more than what I'd ever made before. The money was easier, because if you're organized well enough, you can do the business. You can do it efficiently, and you can make really good money doing it. And that's where I find myself today. A lot of people for what we do for a living, they really work their tail off, and they have to listen to a lot of people telling them, what to do, and they're kind of just like the puppet. And in this business, we don't have to do that, and that's the greatest thing about this business.
It's funny that you say that, because I'll hear people on a call on our business and they say, nobody's going to outwork me. And I just laugh at them. I said, go to New York and watch those guys work 12 hours on a sky lifts. You know what I mean? Like, we don't work we're not the hardest working. Let's just stop that. But we do have to be efficient. Like you said, you have to be prepared. And it seems like you always had a business owner mindset. I want you to talk on that for a second. I don't even know if you notice it, but from day one, it seemed like I want to run my own thing. It seemed like you weren't okay with being just a worker at a company. Where did that come from? Did your dad own his own business, or was there something you were reading at that time back in, say,
No, I think it just come from always wanting to be in charge, to be honest. And I always wanted to be in charge of everything that I did, because I guess it goes back to the model. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. In that aspect of being, able to grow and do whatever you want to do. I felt if I was pulling the strings, I would be able to go anywhere.
Yep.
And I firmly believe that, and still do today, that you can go anywhere if you make the right decisions, bring the right people with you. You can't do it alone, and do everything that you can within yourself to make it happen. So
Bill Parcells once said, if you want me to cook the dinner, let me buy the groceries. Right. So
There
that's
you
what
go.
you were saying. Now, back in that time, the business had to be a little bit different. There was no GPS. So what was that like trying to find houses, man? Like, tell me a
You
little
know,
bit.
that's funny. I've got it here.
Just
I
reaching
just pulled out. I was going through some of my paperwork the other day. I think it's over here to my left, but I pulled out my old map,
like an
and
old way
we
you
used,
bought.
yeah. We had the maps, okay, and you could buy them. You could buy them in the 8x10s,
Yeah.
and you would buy them by zip codes.
Hmm.
So you would open up the book, and it would say the zip code 45405 or
Yeah.
45424
Yeah.
for Huber,
Yeah.
and it would tell you all the streets, and you would and if you needed 454, 14, then you just flip the page, and that was the next one, and that's how you would navigate. There was no, you find it on the big map. Okay, I'm here, and I
Yeah.
got to go here, and
Yeah.
I got to go through this zip code to this zip code to get to this zip code, and that's how you would do it. So
Man. And
yeah.
then, am I right in saying you took a little bit of time off from Lincoln? Is that correct?
I took a lot of time off from Lincoln,
Okay.
16
And
years.
and what made you choose a different path? I think everything happens for a reason. A lot of people say, hey, I wouldn't change my journey if I could because it wouldn't make me be who I am. What made you choose that path? And then talk about that and then coming back.
Read Justin Howard's book. If you haven't read
Yeah.
Justin Howard's book, how a self-made or how an enlisted man became a self-made millionaire,
Yeah.
read that book. And in that book, he actually kind of cataloged my life in the beginning with Lincoln Heritage and me leaving Lincoln Heritage.
Mhm.
So who knows? Maybe he'll go back and write the book of me coming back. No, the book was about Justin, of course, his journey, which we all started together, and
Mhm.
I went to school with Justin from first grade on,
Yep.
and then Brad and I, of course, met in middle school. But so I was gone for 16 years. While I was gone, I did a little bit of everything,
Mhm.
which was very difficult to keep up with. Selling Medicare supplements,
Mhm.
long-term care, annuities. Don't get me wrong, I made good money doing it, but it wasn't. There was just so much changing, so much evolving. What really pushed me out of healthcare business was the ACA in 2008. So I went more to state. I went to work for State Farm. I worked for State Farm for a few years, and which was closer to home. wasn't doing any type of traveling, and then I worked for a large cemetery and funeral home business for about 7 years. And during that 7 years, I saw what was going on with Lincoln Heritage and Justin and Brad, and how they were evolving, how they were doing a lot better than what I was doing, which I thought I was doing awesome.
Yep.
And then I saw the level at what they were, and then I decided to reach back out to Justin in particularly, and of course he opened. Justin's like open arms. He's like, anytime you want to come back, man. He says, you let me know. So the day that I was leaving the cemetery and funeral home business, I actually called Justin and I said, I'm ready to go. And he says, come to my house, and went straight to his house and signed a contract.
Man, they Justin and Brad, they say nothing but great things about you. That's why we look at you when you walk in. You're like, I'm here one day, and everybody's like, Justin Gonzalez. Like, we know you for years, man. But you've been nothing but advertised, brother. You're open arms. You give anything that you have. Now let's talk about what in the funeral home business got you so prepared for this business, because you have, I don't want to say a low learning curve, but you came in I mean, you hit it right off the bat. So how did that prepare you so well? What are the things that are alike, and for the new agents, the things that are different that you might be able to help them understand why they got to understand funerals if they're going to be successful with this company?
Well, I worked in a funeral home. I actually worked in three different funeral homes as a family service manager, and then I worked in two cemeteries as a family service manager. So my duties included not only the having a sales team to sell caskets, vaults, headstones, flat bronze memorials, um, urn vaults, mausoleum crypts,
Mm-hmm.
personal columbarium estates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, you name it. We sold at grave spaces, opening, closing of the grave. We did all of that. And on the funeral side, I sold packages. You know, our people sold packages where we would sell the casket, the vault, the flowers. We
Yep.
would sell, you know, the different, the necklaces, you name it. We sold
Pick them up.
every
You guys
single
put them
thing.
together like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
We sold every single thing that you could imagine um, under the sun, and we sold a lot of it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, in the years that I was there, one year I was, or we were, I should say, our team was the number one sales team in the Main Street group in the entire country. 2 years we were the number one team in our region. So we did very, very well. We doubled our production from the time I started till the time I left.
Now stop there. You were the lead of the team. You were the one that did the training and everything on everybody.
Did all the training and everything on everybody.
Okay. Then what do you think attributed to the 100% growth, man? What was it? The way that you trained? Did you get people? You know, like right now I'm reading a book on emotional intelligence, getting people self-aware. What do you take them where they were here? You get in there and say, let me implement this. This is probably going to increase us. What was that? What was that like?
So in that business, and here's the insides to cemetery and funeral home business. There's a lot of discounts.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of discounts that can be given. Okay, so the model of the cemetery business or the funeral home business that I work for, which was the largest funeral home and cemetery business or owner in the country, is each year we would take a look at the cost of caskets. We'd take a look at the cost of vaults. We take a look at the cost of the opening, closing. Take a look at the cost of the gray spaces, headstones, and then we'd have a meeting on whether to raise those costs or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some years we would raise the cost 10, 15%. Some years we wouldn't raise it much at all.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it depended on, you know, what everyone else was doing in the area. And then it come along the discounts. So as you know, there's a lot of room in cemeteries, or I'm sorry, funeral homes, to offer the cost of a funeral at $5,000,
Mm-hmm.
to offer a funeral at $10,000, but have the same exact product,
Yep.
doing the same exact thing, just under two different roofs. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of room in between the cost of a casket and the cost of how much they're actually charging for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't get into exact details, but the rule was about 3.5% or 3.5 times the amount of what we pay something is typically what we would charge. So just give you an example, if we bought something for $1,000, we would sell it for $3,500.
Kind of like buying wine at a restaurant, right?
Yeah. So if you look at the upcharge there, if I gave a 25% discount to a customer, well, let's say I gave a 20% discount. That's a $700 discount on a $3,500 on $3,500. So if you take that $700 away, I'm at $2,800. You know, $2,800. I'm still making $1,800 on my $1,000 investment. So what we did is, and what I would do is I would give discounts each year. So if I had customers, if I gave discounts and it helped me make a sale, then that's what I would do. until we doubled the production. I mean,
You taught the team how to do the same thing, huh?
Yeah, I taught the team how to do the same thing. I said, call me, you know, if we need to give a discount to make a sale, then that's what we would do.
Now, did you notice when people came in, if they had an insurance policy, I don't know, how can I word this? Did they care as long as it wasn't coming out of pocket? So if say somebody had a $10,000 policy, were you usually able to push the funeral up to whatever the policy amount was and the beneficiary not care as long as it didn't come out of pocket? Or was there a lot of haggling from there? Because I'm assuming a lot of people never shopped for a burial until they came and saw you guys when somebody passed away.
Yeah. So now this is on the cemetery side. If someone walked in and they just came from the funeral home, and let's say they spent $5,000 at the funeral home, and they've given me a $10,000 life insurance policy, I can accept assignment on that policy, anything over and above of what the funeral home was charging.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I would look at that like, okay, these people have $5,000 to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at what they need.
Yep.
So we would, you know, if they owned a grave space but didn't have the opening closing, of course, that's the first thing that has to come out. And now we're looking at a headstone. Mm-hmm. So if I'd have to discount that headstone to get it underneath that $10,000, then that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome.
So, but you're right. As long as the family members, it never ever heard a family member complaining that we were able to get everything underneath the life insurance. So yeah, you don't get a lot of haggle. You don't get anything. Well, that's what it's for. Here's the $10,000. That's what it's for. Go ahead and take care of it.
Now let's fast forward into that mindset to the business now. What have you taken from there to help you do so well when it's selling the final expenses? Because
yeah. So it's completely opposite. So you know, in any business, you become an expert at what you do. You can figure out what you can do to help your customer to make the best make the best scenario. Okay. So for instance, I've got a customer, let's say they only have $6,000 with the life insurance because that's all they can afford.
Yep.
And they pass away, and the family member calls me. You know, I get death calls all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, let's say they call me and they say, Justin, Mr. Jones died. Mm-hmm. What do I do? You know, of course, the first thing that I do is I offer my condolences. And I say, just sit tight. Let me pull some information, and I'll get right back with you. So if I've done the FCGS paperwork, I actually pull their paperwork. I keep them all filed.
So you do the FCGS part yourself because you're so familiar with it most of the time?
Absolutely. It takes me about 5 to 7 minutes to do for my customers. Sometimes I'll do it on the computer. It makes it a lot easier. Mm-hmm. But I'll do it for them. That way, because if that's a huge part of what they want, then my job is to do that for them.
Exactly.
So I'll pull that information. I'll call the funeral home, or I'll call FCGS. The last one I called FCGS. Mm-hmm. Called FCGS and said, hey, here's what I need. Mm-hmm. This person's passed away. We need to call this funeral home, and we're looking for a direct burial, which that one we were. Direct burial, 20 gauge casket, you know, service, quick service. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously during the coronavirus, it was not, a long.
Oh, so that was recent.
Oh yeah, real recent.
Yeah.
So they actually called 2 or 3 different funeral homes. They got the price down pretty good. But I told the customer, I said, you know, if you really want to go lower, I said, we certainly can. I know another funeral home that we could probably drop another $1,500 off this, which was getting it to around $4,000.
Yep.
And the customer's like, well, yeah, I mean, we don't care. I mean, it's going to be right at the graveside. Let's just take care of it.
Yep.
And we did. So we dropped it all the way down to $4,200. That was a 20 gauge steel casket, everything that they needed to go along with it. And we took care of it.
I try to tell these new agents, hey, make sure you go in these funeral homes. I have 2 in Tampa that they can get theirs down to $4,000, and both of them are family owned, and they're not selling to anybody. You know, they've been there forever, and they do whatever, man. They did a cremation with a viewing for me once at $1,500. I didn't even think I called them up. It was when the hurricane happened down here. Everybody was moving. The lady passed away during the hurricane, so it was just shambles. And I was on the phone driving to Ohio for about an hour, and they were like, "We got it, Eric. Hey, man, this is why." And you know what? I refer everybody to them.
And you know, if you build those relationships with those funeral homes, they'll be happy to see. Now they know, you know, sometimes they know that, hey, sometimes they don't have enough insurance, and that's just the way it is. But they also know that Lincoln Heritage is going to pay right away.
Yeah,
they're going to get their funds right away.
Now, coronavirus hits, COVID-19. You know, it's going to be here for 12 to 18 months, whatever they say, right? Tell me, what were you thinking right away, business-wise? How did you transition to, hey, I need to get good on these phones, and then just attacking the business? Tell me that.
You know, so at first when it all happened, I've become more of an objective person. So I kind of sit back and I watch to see what's going on, see how people are reacting, see what my role's going to be. And I learned that from Justin Howard. Justin Howard, if you know, the guy that questions everything, you know, that's exactly what I did when all of this happened. I sat back and I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to freak out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was kind of freaking out myself going, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here? But I sat back, I asked a lot of questions, and I'm an expert on the phone. You know, as far as the phone, I don't know too many people that are better on the phone than myself. I'm not I mean, that'd be the only thing that I can brag on, because back in the day, we would make phone calls out of the phone book because we ran out of leads. So nothing scares me on the phone. So for me to get on the phone is like me talking to you. I mean, that's not a big deal. So being an expert on the phone is very helpful. That wasn't overnight. That was not overnight. That was something that I worked on. I've been through training from some of the best telephone people that, you know, have ever walked the face of the earth, if you ask me. But I've been through some really good training for on the phone, and I'm prepared for anything that comes at me on the phone.
A new agent on the phone, say if they didn't have your experience, what would you recommend? Maybe 1 or 2, 3 things that they get in their toolbox. I always call it toolbox because we put our tools and crafts in our toolbox. What would you say, hey, to get on the phone, make sure you do this, this, and this?
Well, make sure that you know what you're going to ask. Okay, if you're going to get on the phone, you're going to talk to people. You have to be able to keep that person talking to you. Okay, you have a very short period of time to do that. So you have to ask a question, and while they're answering that question, you have to have another question ready. Okay, until you get that guard brought completely down. When that guard's down, you'll know it, because everything will be a lot more relaxed. And then once they're more relaxed, then you can be more relaxed. But you have to get that guard down. And the only way to do that is to ask questions, and questions that are going to get them to respond and think, so that they can help bring that guard down. So a lot of mirroring the way they're talking, a lot of, you know, asking them questions to get them to think instead of just hang up on you. And then once you get them a little bit more relaxed, then you can ask them, you know, questions to get them to more of a rapport part, to get them to give you more information.
I always say nobody ever hangs up on you while they're talking, right? So if you get them talking, they're not going to say blah, 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 and hang up. They're always going to.
Yeah. So and one of the things that, and I'll share this with you, I share it with, you know, just about everyone that I get on the phone with, but and it's the easiest thing to do. If someone's calling you, or if you're calling someone and they say, well, I don't remember sending this card, I always respond with, well, that's why I called. And I already know what I'm going to say next. You know, every time I say, well, that's why I called. So if they say, well, I don't remember sending that card, well, that's why I called, Miss Jones. You probably get a lot of things in the mail. You probably filled it out, don't remember it, but that's why I called. It just takes a few minutes to go over it.
That's what I
So
mean.
if
Now,
she says, well, I'm getting ready to go out to the store. Well, that's why I called. This only takes a few minutes to go over with you. It just takes 5 minutes. Give me just a second here, and I'll pull up the information.
but that's why I call. You guys got to use that, right? Use
My
that.
son's sick. Well, that's why I called. It's very important. I got a flat tire. Well, that's why I called. I wanted to let you know AAA's numbers. I could do that all day long. I could do it all day long, and that's why I called.
Yeah. Now,
So,
you did say something where I don't think some even vets don't know this, mirroring. All right, because I believe in it too. Explain mirroring to the people that may not know what it is and how that helps you out on a phone call.
So if you mirroring is basically acting exactly like the person that's on the phone. So if someone gets on the phone, hey, hello, who's this? Hey, this is Justin, Lincoln Heritage. So same thing if they answer, hey, who's this? Hey, this is Justin, Lincoln Heritage.
Yeah.
So it's just giving them back what they're giving you. And of course, you'll break away from that once you get that guard down. And some people will take that guard down right away. Some people that guard will immediately be down because they're in a good mood.
Yep.
If you catch them in a bad mood, you'll know it. Don't take it personal. You might just caught them at the bad time.
And the right out the left, right?
That's right. But it don't take it personal. But there's a lot to do with the voice. Whenever you get on the phone, if you want to make something serious, you slow the voice down. You tell them, Eric, I can't tell you how important this really is, because if you had died yesterday, this is a limited benefit policy. There's not a company that I know that could offer you first day coverage because you just had a heart attack yesterday. In fact, most of them would deny you that I know of.
Makes you lean in, right? Makes them even on the phone. They're leaning.
That's right. Even on the phone.
I call that my. Remember back in the day, they used to have the quiet storm at night. It was the love making music, and it'd be the DJ always talk like you just talk.
Yeah, yeah. So and if you're on the phone and someone's talking to you like that, you're like, okay, this is serious now. And that's exactly what I use. And today, I don't even realize that I'm doing it because I've done it so long.
Pace, right? Pace too.
Yeah, and pace. Whether you're going fast, whether you're going slow, absolutely. It has everything to do with the phone call. And the weirdest things of like standing up and looking down or walking around. Some people can't just sit still and make phone calls. They got to be up. Nothing wrong with that. It's completely normal to want to be able to talk down to that phone, or it'll actually help you move around and feel better about what you're doing.
I changed it, something simple as this, Justin. Believe it or not, I changed my seat at my desk from a traditional office seat to a stool because it brought me up higher and easier to stand up now.
Yeah.
Just something simple like that, and I noticed the difference in my energy.
Yeah.
The last thing, real quick, man. When you had also spoke about, hey, I need to know the questions I'm going to ask. Some people would question that, say that, hey, that's kind of like a script. Tell them how important it is, because we talked about, hey, what do you have going on right away? Well, it's not so robotic, but you do want to get something structured, because I think a lot of new agents or new people think they have to master a script and say it word by word, but they're going to fail miserably trying that.
Yeah.
So talk on that a little bit.
Yeah. So even for myself, the thing that kicked off this coronavirus thing for me, got me really excited, was that phone call with Teresa Maynard.
Mm-hmm.
So that really got me pumped. I mean, I raced down to my basement, and I'm like, okay, how do I put this together? And that's when I contacted you.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted you because I had heard about the script, and I don't know how I missed that we talked about the 27-page script or whatever it was.
Yep.
I heard about the script, and I'm like, okay, I need to get my hands on that script. Because just like the presentation, if you don't incorporate certain things in the presentation, there's a possibility that that could have been the one thing that could have turned it from a non-sale to a sale.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a script for the telephone sales so that I could kind of see whether if I left something out, if it would make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And doing the script, doing partial what I took from you, I dummied it down to about 4 or 5 pages.
Perfect.
From the 20-some pages to 4 or 5. And of those pages, it just worked tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And the light bulb, you know, after I took it all and put it on the computer, I actually stole THG's PowerPoint, but university, and I just put it all down there, and I did it, and it worked. I was like, wow. So then I did it again, and it worked, and it worked, and worked, and worked, and worked. You know, and I wrote, I don't know, 40, 50 apps off of that.
That's awesome.
And then here's the funny thing. I stepped away from the script. You know, we were listening, we were doing a call or whatever, and some people said, oh, you don't need a script. Some people need a script, I don't need a script. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't need a script. So I, you know, being as good as I thought I was, got on the phone call. And it was actually one of my policy holders that had sent a mailer in. And I start talking to him, and I get done, and I didn't get the sale.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, what went wrong? So I stepped back and looked at the situation and realized that I forgot 2 or 3 things in the script that made a huge difference. So it taught me that even though I'm as good as I think I am, I need to get my script out, and it needs to be right there on the screen every time I make that phone call. Whether I need it or not, it's just a guide. Yep. It's just a guide. And it'll help remind me of the way that the presentation needs to go, so I can continue the same successes that I've had before.
Right. Tom Brady, he still has that playbook right on his wrist. Pretty sure you don't need it.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Yeah. And he'll be in Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, man. Think about this, man. I do that. That's probably happened to me in my 9-year career once a year. I'll do that. Just like you said, hey, I got this. I remember there was a person from Ohio and I went to meet. And I'm like, I got this. They're from Ohio. They're talking, yay, the Buckeyes. I give a whole presentation, and I'm like, okay, so when do you want to sign up? And the wife looks at me and goes, what are we even doing? And I go, I'm sorry. You know what? I should have did this like from the beginning to the end, like the THG teaches. Now, the last thing I want you to talk about, because I know you do so good at this because you're from the funeral home. We got a lot of agents that are getting, I want to think about it, and I'm telling them, hey, that's because we're not building any value. Tell people how to build value through either the phone call or face-to-face. How do you build that value so they know this is not just an insurance policy. This is something that's going to stay with the family. You know, of course, you are your own FCGS, but things like that. How do you build that value?
So I build the value by allowing the customer to know that they can call me or the company 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, they can call me. And I've made that very clear to all of them. And anybody can do that. If they get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, all they got to do is call FCGS, do a 3-way call, FCGS. That way they know that their customer's being taken care of. Okay. It also is huge with those 4 cards. So you got those 4 cards that can be given to their family members, and one that's laminated, 4 that are not. Those cards can be given to them with your phone number on them as well, so that they can reach out to you first. Okay. On average, we save our customers about $1,800 on average. Okay. I will pull off certain examples of instances where we've saved them even more. I had a customer in Dayton, Ohio. The brother, I won't tell you any names, of course, but the brother had a problem, and he was considered modified on our policy. And he died unexpectedly. And the brother called me early in the morning, and I told him, I said, you know, the funeral homes and everything aren't open. Your brother's policy is modified. And it's not going to pay out much, you know, maybe maybe 100 to 150 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a lot to work with. So why don't we wait here? I'll call you here in a little bit. And after everything's opened up, and we'll get it, because his brother was at the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll get back with you. He says, okay. So in the meantime, he went ahead and called one of the funeral homes in town, unbeknownst to me. And then I called him, and he says, well, I got this funeral home over here. It's $9,500 for everything that I want. $9,500.
Now, have they already picked up the body?
No, they didn't pick up the body. That's the biggest part. So they didn't pick up the body. And I said, well, you certainly didn't tell them to pick him up, right? He says, oh no, I was waiting on you. I said, I'm glad. I said, so let's do this. Let me reach out to a couple funeral homes here. So I called a couple funeral homes in the Dayton area, one that I use all the time, because they don't charge nothing compared to the rest of these funeral homes. Half the cost most of the time. And called that funeral home, told them what I was working with, asked them to give me the best price. And then in the meantime, I called the brother back, and I said, what cemetery? He wants full burial.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what cemetery do you want? And he told me, which is West Memory Garden out there in Moraine. And West Memory Garden's owned by the Stonemore Group, which is a large conglomerate owned cemeteries and funeral homes. So I called out there. I spoke with Kim, who was like a family service manager, like kind of what I did at my cemeteries. And I told her what I had, and I told her what I wanted. And I said, I need the best price. And this happened to be at the end of the month. Okay. So I also knew end of the month, you got to get all them sales in at that cemetery, make that big bonus at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So she needed some heritage, is what we called gray spaces. You sold gray spaces, you made a lot more money because there's a lot more money to make off of them.
Yep.
So I told her, I said, we'll get a grave space, opening, closing, but we also need a headstone, need a small one. Mm-hmm. We were able to get the grave with the headstone, the opening, closing, and a headstone for $1,700. Yeah. The entire thing for $1,700. We were able to get his funeral with the gravestone, everything, $5,100.
Man, now that's
50. So we got this guy buried with a headstone, flat bronze headstone, for $5,100.
Saving $4,400.
Saving $4,400.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, man.
So build the value of what you can do off of your own experiences. Mm-hmm. But don't be afraid to reach out to that funeral home. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to reach out to that funeral home. If you know a funeral home that's has some good prices, and the customer thinks, oh, I've got to have 20,000. We'll give you 20,000, ma'am, if that's what you want. But as far as your funeral, we can get it a lot lower if you need to get it lower, if price is an issue. So build the value of what our company can do that other companies just don't do.
And this is on the phone when you're making your appointments or your telesales, right? You just throw that in there. Hey, this is what we do.
That's right. And there's not another company in the business that does it. I had a lady a couple of days ago that had a term policy. I won't say the name, but it was a term policy. And she's 70 some years old. She had no business having a term policy. But that's what she had. And the company had talked her into keeping it until she's in her 80s and then converting it to a whole life policy. And I said, well, that's fantastic. I said, but did they happen to tell you the prices of those policies once you get to that age? And she says, well, no. And I said, well, why didn't you get a whole life policy? And she says, well, it was a lot higher for less benefit. I said, absolutely, because it's permanent. They're not going to take it from you. It's permanent. So she says, well, not only that, but what you guys do on the funeral side where I can document everything and you keep it, I want to do that. And she says, well, how much is it for you for 25,000? And I told her, and ours was like $13 more a month than the other company.
Okay.
The other company, it was like 13. She goes, I don't care. She says, I'd pay $20 more a month because of what you do. So if the value is what it is, it's like buying a Cadillac and buying a Chevette.
Yeah.
You know, the Chevette will get you there, you know, but you're not going to ride smoothly. It may be loud, you know, it's going to get you there, but it's not going to do all the additional things that the Cadillac.
Now, let me ask you this. When you're in the phone call, when do you know where to start building that value of the FCGS? What do they say where you're like, boom, right here is where I'm going to throw this in? And I know every phone call is different, but there's got to be something where you know.
I do my presentation. Mm-hmm. I do my actual presentation. So in my script that I wrote down, the 4 or 5 pages, the presentation's actually in there because of THG University. Awesome. So all I do is click that little button and my presentation comes up, and I scroll through my presentation and do my presentation and build that value once I get to FCGS.
Perfect. You guys listen to that. He has something pre-planned, mapped out already that he doesn't veer from. And when he did, he caught himself and corrected it right away. Man, Justin, that's it. I did not want to keep you long, about 40, 50 minutes. You have so much great information. I couldn't miss out on it. Is there anything else you want to add? We love having you. We're so happy you came back. I see nothing but success from you coming on. Is there anything else you want to say to me?
I'm just happy to be here. I'm loving life. You know, I came into this business because I lost 2 brothers at a very young age. My first brother died when I was 8 years old in a car crash. My second brother, which was my closest brother, died when I was 19. He was murdered. So that really, seeing the difference between the two, I kind of knew I wanted to go into the business, even when Brad was coming and you know, trying to get me to leave and do that. So I know the value of not having life insurance, which was my first brother, to having life insurance, which was my second brother.
How old were you between the first passing and how old were you when your first brother passed? 8. How old were you? Oh, you were 8 and you were 19 when they passed?
Yep. 8 years old and 19 years old.
That's a lot of trauma. Back then, we didn't even have people to talk to either.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, I lost my dad. And, you know, that's obviously the hardest day of my life, but up until this point. But it was a huge growing experience for me. How Justin and Brad put up with me at that time, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. Because I look back at some of the things that I said or some of the things that I did, and those guys probably thought I was crazy. But at that point, I probably was.
Right?
Somewhat crazy because I was just completely lost. Mm-hmm. I wasn't into recruiting. I wasn't, even though, you know, I was being told, hey, you know, you need to get some recruits. It just wasn't there. It wasn't until my 3rd year in the business when I really started to buckle down, start to recruit some people, and start to grow a little bit.
You can't outright, you know, 8 good agents, right? Or 8 average agents. You can't personally outright them. So in order to scale your business to where you want to be, and I know your goals, you have to recruit, right?
That's right.
I mean,
go ahead. Yeah. And, you know, Justin Howard really helped me through that. You know, he basically, it's almost like he lit a light bulb in my head. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I want to thank him for that, because who knows where I would have taken it from where I was. And until you get that realization, or someone, you know, tells you, hey, man, you may not realize this, but, and then they tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, it woke me up. It woke me up, and it gave me a completely different outlook. And I can tell you, I wasn't 100% sold on this opportunity when I came back. And I was being the person sitting back, watching everything, seeing how the group, was formed, how everything was going, and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, so I was very careful what I did. And I was doing outside. I was
Yeah.
doing stuff outside. I never recommend that. Don't ever flip houses and try to do this business. Don't ever, do outside adventures. It's just you're taking your focus away from what makes you the money. I lost probably 40, 50 grand last year alone by going outside of here to make another 20 grand. So it just doesn't make sense. Don't do it. I would totally encourage you.
I say that to people where, it's popular now. People mirror whatever they hear on TV right now, speaking of mirroring. So they'll say you have to have different revenue streams, right? But you don't. You really don't. Why do I have to have different revenue streams? And they're usually talking about investments, but the masses think like, I have to do this. I have to go along with this MLN. I have to do this, this, this. And whenever I get those emails, even from my cousin, hey, join this. No. Why? Because I could just put that effort into my own business.
That's right.
I'd be that much further ahead a year from now.
Yeah, since when Justin lit that light bulb in my head, I turned everything around. My income increased about 25 to 30%, which is a good example of what I was doing was wrong, and I should have just kept focusing on what I was good at, and I'm good at this.
Yep.
So this year will be great.
Good, man. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your hour. I just wanted to spotlight you, man. Thank you for coming back. We love you here.
Honored.
All right,
man.
You have a good one now.
All right, brother. We'll see ya.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace. Two fingers.